Just because they're paying you doesn't mean their brains are any different than your boyfriend. It turns into, you think you know better for me than I know better for myself. It has likely nothing to do with nutrition itself.
I'm just getting through the ones we had from before, and then we can come back to the ones that people are popping in right now. So this is from before from Jillian.
Can you also talk about some of the systems you find work? Do you take notes or a blurb after so you remember what you've talked about and tried before? Slightly overwhelming. This is different for every coach. So I will say, with the hundreds and hundreds of clients that I've personally worked with and the systems that we had at KJO Coaching, my one-on-one company, when I had assistant coaches on my team, we did have a pretty robust, like, note-taking type of system. We use, this is from like Kira, you could talk about systems. We use ClickUp, which is customer management software, project management software, everything in between, and had a different, they call them tasks in ClickUp, but really like different spot for each client, where we kept all of the information on like where they were at in the program, what was going on. Coaches would leave notes in there. Also just like had check-in forms all in like one spot. So you could very easily like see from previous weeks what people have done, leave notes on that. Everyone's different and everyone operates differently and how the best way for them to keep track of everything. But I mean, honestly, the other coaches who are on the call, you can share, you can answer Jillian's question too. And in general, this is like, not to just keep selling you guys on HMCC, but we talk about this stuff all the time in HMCC, and you're going to be surrounded by 99 plus other coaches. Some people who have been doing this stuff for 15, 20 years and have probably tried a lot of different systems. And we get into conversations about this stuff a lot, whether it's like coaching software or like, how are you guys like keeping track of the data for each of your clients? All of it. Yeah. So can you keep that in mind too? It's sometimes you just need a crowdsource.
This one is from Eric.
On the live call, you mentioned that we shouldn't always be telling our clients what to do and that coaching should focus more on helping them think and to make decisions for themselves. How does that apply in a coaching program that also includes educational content, like lessons on nutrition or training? For example, if clients watch a short lesson, like what is protein and why is it important? Is it appropriate to ask them to implement something related to that lesson during the week, or would that still fall under telling them what to do? If the goal is for them to apply what they learned, how can we frame so they take action without feeling like we're just giving them instructions? Ooh, that's a good question. For instance, you guys are in HMCC and I have you go through a module and then I have you do an application assignment. And then we get on a live call and we talk about that application assignment and how what you just learned applies to your coaching specifically. That is me telling you what to do. Go fill out that application assignment, right? But that is different than me saying, this is the exact script you need to use with your clients. And although sometimes coaches in HMCC want something like that, we know better. That's not how this works, right? I can't just tell you what to do because then people will read it and go, that's not what I would say. That's not how I would say it. This doesn't make any sense to me. I don't want to do it that way. And that's how it'll work with your clients too. It's different when you're saying like, hey, here's this module to watch and here's an exercise that complements the module so you can actually get it into your life. So I wouldn't worry about that too much, Eric. I'm glad that you are, because it means that you're like really paying attention. You're like, oh shit, am I doing all of this incorrectly? So more so, you're still providing autonomy by saying, go figure out basically how to add this into your life. You're giving them like a quote unquote assignment to go apply it, but they're figuring out how they want to do that, how they want to fit it in, what that actually looks like for them. So yeah, I don't think you need to worry too much, and education is still important and teaching our clients stuff is still important. I don't want you guys ever to feel like, oh my gosh, I can't now tell my clients about anything. I can't teach them things. There's a big difference between teaching and telling, you know? I think some coaches, a lot of coaches get those wires crossed where they think they're teaching when they're actually just like telling. But education and giving them information about protein and that whole thing is different than oh, you're lacking protein in the last week. Why don't you go pick up these high protein snacks? That's not education. That's not teaching. That is telling. So we wouldn't want to do it that way. I hope that clarifies and that is helpful.
This is a question from Jillian, and I think it goes really well with what was just asked.
Okay. I wondered how you implement actually working through these behavioral sticking points with clients when we have limited time. Seems like some of this would take some significant time to really help someone work through. Yeah, Jillian, and you can let me know in the chat too, or come off mute really quick if you are you doing like calls? Do you have like a certain amount of time that you actually get to talk to them?
Yeah, so I'm doing weekly calls with my clients. They take it, depending on the client, anywhere from like, I don't know, 20 minutes to like 45 or an hour.
Yeah, I think part of it is that you do have to remember you're not going to be able to like get through everything every single time. And as time goes on, you'll probably get to the point where it's like we have less of these really big topics to work through and we're getting more into like nitty-gritty little pieces. So with you and having that like 45 minutes to an hour, it's okay to prioritize some things and know that there's other stuff that you still want to get to and touch on. And that's where you kind of have to like learn the discernment of like what's going to be the biggest rock to focus on first. So like if that is the fixed mindset umbrella is over all of this stuff. If that's the case, then we probably don't need to start getting into like really specific strategies for like habit formation and teaching about self-control versus stress and what that looks like in your brain. These are just topics that I'm thinking of from HMCC. It may be and probably is if you're noticing that the overarching, underlying, however you want to look at it, issue is mindset, then that probably is worth your time to spend extra on rather than some of the other little things. At the same time, we do want them to still be feeling like there's a concept in psychology called idleness aversion. And we don't want them to feel like they're idle because we have an aversion to it. So we want them to still feel like they're like actively doing things to make progress. So fairly certain a lot of people would get frustrated very fast if you've just spent the last 4 weeks and 4 hours just like talking about mindset and like working on that stuff. So probably still want to like insert some really like easy action oriented stuff, things that are helping them get into it, whether like that's it from a nutrition or fitness perspective, really tangible things, while this is still like for you, you're keeping the main focus on. Because also like once you start to chip away at some of those bigger rocks, the other rocks that you've been like wanting to get to are also getting impacted because the bigger rocks impact the smaller rocks. I hope that helps. Those kind of like analogies and rocks and stuff. I hope that
Yeah, it does.
but yeah, I think it can be very overwhelming to be like there's so much stuff I could do and there's all these things. And I think just like taking some time to like look at everything and go, where do I want to start? And kind of build like a roadmap for yourself of like where you would want to go with them can be helpful. So you just feel like you have direction. But yeah, also some of this stuff is going to take more time up front, and that's the truth. But the goal is that you're putting in the time up front so that there is less time later versus just like spinning wheels or like throwing things at the wall and hoping it sticks for 6 months and then they're still not making progress, right?
Okay, this next one is from Audrey. And Audrey, I'm really sad you're not joining HMCC this go around because one of the bonuses is the level 2 module on emotional eating. And it's an entire module from level 2 on just this exact thing. So I don't know how much you want to go into this question, Kasey, but this is the last question from last time.
Yeah. Okay. I also want to ask about mindset approach to emotional eating and binge eating. I'm really careful around this. I don't want to go out of scope. Yeah, good job. Any recommendations about the approach to helping with this? I have a client that I've been working with, and we've talked about regular eating, which was helping, and food scarcity mindset. But any other recommendations? Okay. I do have, Kira, I'm going to need you to be the podcast person.
Okay, I'm ready. I already brought it up.
I have episodes on emotional and stress eating. There's a couple of them that definitely can still like get you started and help you with some of the foundations. And also I have an episode on scope of practice, and that like health coaches are not therapists type of thing, which I think can give you some good like rules of thumb to know to ensure that you are staying within your scope of practice, which is obviously very important, especially when we're doing this kind of work. We need to be cautious of that, but absolutely, coaches, you can help with mindset and behavior change and support emotional eating without being a therapist. That is absolutely something you do, and I think you should be doing. So that said, you say mindset approach to emotional eating and binge eating. There's quite a difference between like, this can be helpful for the scope of practice thing, between binge eating and binge eating disorder. And this is an HMCC somewhere, but it's an external link here. You may even be able to find it if you just go to Google and type in binge eating disorder scale. But you could, if you need to, if you feel like you get to this point, to send it to your clients to fill out, or you may even have enough information to fill it out for them to see how they end up scoring, because binge eating disorder is definitely something we are out of scope of practice to support, unless you happen to be an eating disorder therapist also, which we have had those students in our program too. But if it's binge eating, and also there's a big difference between binge eating and overeating. So we're talking overeating, binge eating disorder. We need to know the difference between all of those things. I also have a post on this. I'm curious. I don't want you to go hunt it down because I don't know how far back it was, but it's like a Venn diagram that says overeating and binge eating and understanding the difference, and just how generally that term binge eating is overused when we're actually just talking about, oh, you like had 5 extra Oreos than you wanted, but is that really binge eating or is it just overeating? Which can also be helpful to just like delineate for you as a coach, and also in conversations with your clients, because if they're reframing it as like, oh, I just overate versus like I binged, like you can tell there's weight that comes with that word, and that can make a difference in just like how they see it and how they're approaching it and whether or not they think it's changeable. So then we're talking about mindset here, right? People think that they have a problem with binging versus like, oh, I just overeat, like a lot of people do. That can make it seem more changeable, which now we're talking growth mindset territory. So mindset around emotional eating, overeating, binge eating, depending on what we're talking about here. I mean, there's absolutely a mindset component to this, which I think probably didn't even need to be stated. But when we're thinking about how these things work in tandem, I mean, a classic easy question could be, do you actually think, if your clients are saying, God, the emotional eating thing is so tricky because there's research on like identifying yourself as an emotional eater. Like if your clients are using that term and calling themselves, I'm an emotional eater, they are far more likely to continue to emotionally eat. But if they're not using that term, then there's like a difference there. And we also don't want to start telling our clients that they are emotional eaters and then they start labeling themselves that way. Now that they think that that is something that they can't change, the labeling part is an entirely different conversation, because then we start talking about identity and then unpacking all of that. But what you can do, simple question, is like asking them if they feel like this is something they can change. So if this is a constant conversation that's coming up, a pattern, things that you're talking about your client with, and they're bringing this up, asking them, scale of 1 to 10, I have to ask, how changeable do you think the emotional eating, or whatever term they use, don't use the term if they're not using the term, do you think is changeable? Immediately, that will give you feedback on where their mindset is at with it. And of course, you can do the classic, like, why is that number not higher and why is it not lower? So if they say, is it changeable 4 out of 10? Okay, why aren't you a 5 or a 6? What would it take you to get to a 5 or a 6? But also, why aren't you a 1 or a 2? Oh, because I've made changes before and I've been able to improve my behaviors. Okay, now why is this any different? There's so much good stuff that could come from those little simple questions. Okay, I hope that was helpful.
That is all of the questions from prior. So we're good to jump into questions from today. The first one is from Hannah.
How do you approach a client who is struggling with being vulnerable and sharing all the details of their challenges in their check-ins? This is a very, very common thing. Client example: from the beginning, her check-ins have been hyper positive, and there's a lot of fluff with little t. Recently, she shared with me that through the month of February, she was heavily binge eating. There's that term again. And was unhappy with her progress, none of which she shared with me through the month. Through the conversation, she admitted that she has a hard time being vulnerable and asking for help, but it's something she's actively working on. Our conversation felt like a big breakthrough, but wondering if you have any wisdom to share moving forward with her, how to approach clients like this. English is not her first language, and I can tell she uses ChatGPT. Oh, I mean, that's honestly, Hannah, that can be a really big part of it. I would not be brushing that detail off, which obviously you mentioned it for a reason. But yeah, if English is not her first language and she's, people are different, right? Like some people, English is not your first language, but you also learned English when you were 5, and they can communicate very effectively in English, how they're feeling, what's going on. Other people, and you can maybe tell me where your client is at with this, that's not really possible. Guys, I've been trying to learn Spanish for a while, and I'm getting better. And I've actually recently gone on some dates with a guy who's a native Spanish speaker, and it's been fun. But I cannot communicate, I feel like I can't communicate my personality, right? And who I actually am. I'm not at that level at all. And that's where I desperately would like to get as far as fluency goes. And it's really frustrating to me because I'm I know I just sound dumb and I can't get out. I can't show you who I am. So that could be the biggest thing here. It really could. Yeah, you can let me know, Hannah, if you think any of that resonates or not, or if you're no, it's not quite. Oh yeah, just let me know.
Yeah, so she's French Canadian.
Okay.
So she lived over here on the West Coast for quite some time.
Okay.
Definitely, I can't tell because when we hop on calls, she's so shy. But I can't tell if she's shy because of the language barrier, if that's just her personality. But there definitely is an element of I'll ask a question and she has a hard time kind of computing it into English. And I think the ChatGPT thing as well is she's kind of maybe using that as a crutch in her life, not to assume. So getting comfortable speaking in English is something. But yeah, definitely a big piece, but also could have used ChatGPT to let me know that she was struggling with emotional eating throughout the month of February. So there's a lot of elements going on for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, let me read the rest of this. An intention of hers from the beginning was to be kinder to herself and work on her self-criticism. And I can see that shift in how she shows up in her check-ins, but I also fear she refrains from talking about the challenges for that reason. She's 22. She's a baby. I think there could be an element of age in terms of experience. Yeah. We have a question in check-ins that asks if there's anything I can do as a coach to support her. And she always says everything is great. I'm sure she does. Yeah, absolutely. She does feel supported. And it sounds even just me picturing this and through all of this, I'm she definitely appreciates you, right? Actually I really don't. This is probably a conversation for another time. Podcast idea, maybe. Kira, I can write this down. I don't really love the what can I do for you to support you better question. I don't love it in a check-in form. I don't love it if you had a friend whose mom just died. I don't love it in general because it's putting the responsibility on the person who needs support to be deciding that they need to ask for more if they're in that position. And obviously those are two quite different examples, client check-ins form versus your friend's mom just passed away. But in both cases, there's I have a hard time with it because it's you tell me what you need and figure that out. And the truth is in both cases, they may not know. They don't know how they need the support, I'm not saying I have this full belief that if you have a friend whose parent passed away, you shouldn't ask them how they can best support you. I think it obviously depends, and there's way more nuance to this conversation. But in general, I think if a client doesn't know, that they're not going to be able to answer the question. Maybe there's still some awareness that needs to be built and understanding her own inner dialogue and who she is as a person and what she needs. There's no way she even French off to the side that she would even know how to ask that in French, so that said, with all those words, I wonder, Hannah, what your thoughts are, because it seems like you're having a little bit of like an intuitive hit of like, there's more going on here that I'm not getting, is in some way asking her that without making her feel like she's doing something wrong or that she's not been truthful, that you're like saying that in between the lines. Like you could say, maybe in her next check-in, just like point out all of the positive things that she's saying. And then you could follow up with, what is the thing that you're still feeling most challenged by, or that you feel like you haven't fully grasped yet? Or there's a way to say that so that you're asking her to think about, I don't want to say like the negative things, but the things that maybe would bring out more for you to work on. There's a variety of ways you could probably word that while still being clear that you're recognizing her wins and you're not just like, cool, sounds good. So what's going terrible? Tell me about that, please. You know? So yeah, that's what I would do. That's a good question. That was a good thinker. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that like more direct questions, I think maybe in our one-on-one chats is huge, because like I definitely have been like, hey, like, is there like more you're not sharing with me? And of course she's just like, everything's great. But I think also like to sit and do a whole check-in and like actually like sit with her inner world and what's challenging is probably a lot, especially when, you know, English isn't her first language. So I think just like, here's one question that is direct. You know, obviously we love open-ended questions, but when somebody has a hard time with what's going on in their head, like specifically, what are you being the most challenged with is, I think, yeah.
Yeah. Or even you could ask, like, you could do that of like from the past week or in the upcoming week. Are there any obstacles or challenges that you think we should talk about beforehand before you get to them or something like that? You know, there's lots of ways to kind of just like present that. And also, I think regardless, it's letting her know that you want her to bring that info to you. So even if she's like, can't really think of anything right now, it's like, okay, but now you know that I'm like looking for those things. And you might notice that she starts sharing more if you even just like make it known that that's the stuff that you want to hear about too. All right.
Next is Jillian's question.
How do you suggest
Yep.
pulling some specific feelings when clients say, I feel good about XYZ or bad? Straight up ask them a follow-up. Can you name some specific positive or negative emotions to expand? Yeah, I feel good or bad, like wanting to go a little bit deeper than that. I mean, you can throw in a feelings wheel if you want to. I don't know if you guys have seen those before, know what those are. Maybe Kira could find, what if you just Google it?
I feel like I'm
throw
in therapy. She has one right next to me the whole time.
That's so funny. And throw that in like an image into the chat, but just like gives more words to identify how they're feeling. Like, so when you say, I mean, you could literally say, you don't need to do a feelings wheel, but that's just like what popped into my head. Okay, you say you're feeling good. What does that actually mean? Because that means different things for everybody. Or you say you're feeling bad. Like, what does that actually mean? Because it's different for everybody. And then they expand from there. I think it could be as simple as that. If you wanted to incorporate the feelings wheel at some point, if it makes sense, you definitely can, just to give people more words to work with. All right, I have how and when sales call versus first call or other to explain, hey, listen, getting to true maintenance and then deficit truly takes more than 3 months. So while you'll likely see some good progress, body composition changes in 3 months, to get consistency and feeling confident in your own, it will likely take a lot longer. So keep that in mind when we get to the end of the 3-month package. I would not say most of this on a sales call, if I'm being so honest. People are fearful of things taking a long time. We want instant gratification. Again, it's the way that we're wired. Saying, keep in mind that this will likely take a lot longer is scary language to someone. We know that as coaches, right? But this is actually a conversation I had with some HMCC students recently, that how many of their clients who have now been with them, this was in our alumni group, have been with them for a year, longer, couple years. How many of those clients, if you would have gone on a sales call with them and said, this is going to take 2 years, they would have been like, fuck yeah, sign me up. Can't wait for this to take 2 years of my life. None of them was the answer. So people need some baby steps and they need to feel safe and to know that like, they're not like locked in, because that doesn't feel safe. Or yeah, I mean, there's so many things that you can think about in your life that like took a lot longer, but if at the beginning someone would have said this is exactly how long it's going to take, like the chance of you then actually doing it, because now you know how long it's going to take. But it's just like as you get into the process and time goes on, it doesn't feel that way. So just being cautious with language is basically what I'm getting at there. However, we also don't want people to think that they're going to lose 30 pounds in 30 days. So obviously I'm exaggerating that, but still saying on a sales call, there are a lot of coaches out there that are going to make big promises to you. And if you're saying you want to lose 30 pounds, they may tell you that that can happen in 3 to 6 months. And I will tell you, it's possible for that to happen in 6 months. But I also am not going to guarantee anything because like things come up. Life gets in the way. We may run into some like new roadblocks that neither of us even knew existed in the first place and then have to work through those. But those are all really good things because if those things come up, then we work through them. Then now that's how you're making changes that actually last rather than like quick fixes and fad diets or you can plug and play things that they have said they have done that have not worked. So there's like stay within integrity and don't make false promises. But also this is where we've talked about this in HMCC with students too, like having a form of a guarantee with clients that within 6 months, like you are guaranteed to make incredible progress in so many ways. But I can't tell you exactly what that looks like. And it does require you also to be on board with the things that we're working on and working together and sharing things with me and this being a collaborative relationship. Otherwise, then I definitely can't guarantee anything. I know my program works. I've worked with X amount of people and have helped people lose anywhere from 5 pounds to 100 pounds. I know what I'm doing and I know this works. And this is kind of like you're safe here language. You can feel certain and trust me language. I have credibility language. However, even with the people who I've helped lose 100 pounds, or people I've helped lose 5 pounds, I wasn't guaranteeing that that would happen, but it does. And there's just like ways to speak about this stuff and help them recognize and put you in the position of being more credible because you're saying, I'm not going to guarantee that you're going to make immense results in 90 days because I'm not a fad diet infomercial. I'm someone who actually is really, really, really obsessed with you making changes and seeing results that actually stick. So like, you see how I'm doing that, where you're being honest and in integrity and still telling them the truth. It's like honesty is the best policy type of situation.
I just want to say thank you so much for saying that because I'm just a little baby coach over here, just kind of getting started. So it's intimidating to want to sound so confident, and that all like that's exactly how I would want to say it and want to sound saying it too. So that's super, super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's, something that coaches struggle with a lot is like, how do I make them feel like they can make changes, but also not guarantee changes? Because this is like weight loss and life and people and humans and messy and all of this stuff. But there's a way to communicate it for sure. And people will appreciate that. But a big part of that, to your point, is conviction in your offer, confidence in the work that you do, which I understand can be hard if you haven't had a lot of clients under your belt and people that you've worked with. And also, like, that's where resources and experience in other ways and education and learning and practice. And practice doesn't necessarily have to mean clients. Like, yes, definitely want you to get some clients under your belt, but there's ways to learn. HMCC is a great example of that. We do a lot of application practice, mock client stuff, which can definitely support you with your confidence. Okay.
You are at Audrey.
When it comes to clients feeling not good enough, what type of questions can you ask them to help? I have a podcast episode on this too. It's funny that you asked that, Audrey. I feel like I'm pretty tapped in with what these coaches are looking for if I got full podcast episodes on half of these. What type of questions can you ask them to help? I have a client that feels like she's not worthy of a healthy breakfast. I know I can ask what types of like evidence we have for and against that thought, but where do we go after that? This client is really shy and there was a lot of, I don't know. So what can I say to help encourage them? Okay. Have you ever just asked why she's not worthy of a healthy breakfast? What makes you feel that way? I think sometimes we want to come up with the most interesting and complex question, but the simplest ones can be the most powerful. Because if she says, I don't know to that, like, I don't know why I'm not worthy of a healthy breakfast. I think it could be something like, well, here's the thing. I certainly don't know why you feel that way because I'm not you. And I'm not the expert on your life and your feelings and things that you've been through and experiences that you've had. But there's a reason for why you're feeling that way. If you truly don't know, how would you feel about me sharing some follow-up questions to help us work through this and figure it out together? Because insert utility reason why we're doing this, because that's always really important if we want people to do things. Because if we can figure out where some of this lack of self-worth is coming from, that is going to make a huge difference in your desire and ability to stick to these health behaviors, to see results, to change your entire life is the truth, right? Kind of corny, but it's true. So putting that into like a format, step-by-step format. Why? The answer is, I don't know. Remind her that she knows herself the best and you don't. And so you kind of need her help here. And then follow up with questions around how to actually figure out what's going on and why the self-worth is what it is. I have, and she's come with, okay, she can shut down sometimes. Audrey, to some degree, obviously, I don't know the whole story for this either, but if that continues to come up, and you can ask her too, does this show up in other areas of your life where you feel like your worth is hindering your ability to do things or do things for yourself, take care of yourself? We may be getting into territory of where this is out of scope of practice, especially if it's hindering her like day-to-day life. She has a lot of anxiety. Bingo. Yeah. Is she working with mental health professional outside of like working with you, or is she seeing you as that person? You can let me know. I'm not actually sure. If she's mentioned that she has a lot of anxiety and she has shared that with you, I don't think it's out of the realm of what you should be doing in your relationship with her to ask if that's something that she works on with a mental health professional, which also then kind of like draws the line for you of like, that's not something that I can help you with type of thing. Okay.
Jillian says, okay, I think last question.
Okay. When a client feels bored in maintenance, she has a history of good weight loss on her own, wanted to work with a coach for accountability and digging in deeper. So we got her back at maintenance for consistency, and she's antsy to get to a deficit again. She knows there is a reason and understands, but not seeing any big body changes or scale changes is a little discouraging as well. I feel like a broken record, reminding her she's staying so consistent, and she acknowledges and verbalizes that too. She's honestly a dream client with adherence. So my question, instead of saying I'm proud of her consistently in this phase, how else can I approach? Classic. You should be so proud of yourself for how consistent you are staying and how consistent you are through this phase. Like, that's not something everyone can do. It shows that you have a lot of dedication, and the effort that you're putting into this is really paying off. And this is going to mean really big things for you going forward in your ability to continue to see progress, maintain that progress for a really long time. That's how you can say it. So you're pointing out, you should feel really proud of yourself because, and here's the things that I'm seeing. And then she will likely come back and have some very good responses to that. Okay.
Okay, we did it. That's all of them.
Wow.
If we have time, I need to know both Kasey and Kira's stance on spoons, the actual cutlery, not the metaphor for energy dopamine. There's a debate going on in my Instagram DMs right now over big spoons versus small spoons. Jillian and I are very passionate about this. Oh, I'm team small spoon. I can't fit a big spoon in my mouth. Like, I can't do it.
Eating.
Yeah, but also, like, my fiance uses a spoon for fucking everything, and it weirds me out. Like, he eats this almost everything with a spoon, and I'm like, this is a fork meal. Like, what do you mean? Why do you want a spoon?
I definitely use spoons more often than I use forks, but that's because the food's Maybe things where people would use a fork, I probably not like pasta. Jackson does that, right? Like that's weird.
Yeah,
That's
he
weird.
does that.
Yeah, we gotta look into that.
There was something the other night that we made that he used a spoon for, and I was like, but how are you gonna chomp the bits, you know? You know what I mean?
I think I'm mainly bigger spoons. I like small
Doesn't
spoons for
surprise me
ice
you
cream.
feel like a big spoon person. I
Ice
don't know
cream,
why
I
you
always
give
use
off
a small
big spoon energy.
I give big spoon.
Yeah. I'm a small
Yes,
spoon
you.
energy. Like, please. Sophie, let me see, Sophie. It might not have gotten pulled because I don't remember one from you. Please hold. I was gonna say, do you remember it or do I need to go pull it?
Basically, I have my boyfriend in my mind, and he's a very kind of red personality going, like, I'm sure you guys are very, like, you know what I mean by that. But like, to give him like nutrition advice, he kind of feels like he knows it all. And I often get like, obviously, like he gets a lot of information from elsewhere. So it's like if someone feels like they know better or they have like an ingrained thought, how would you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, how many times people in the room have you like given advice to someone and they pushed back on it and you're like, I don't understand. You were talking about that you were struggling with it and I just tried to help you and now you're like telling me that maybe that's not going to work. You're not sure. Like, I'm what? But that is like classic why we talk about the things we talk about in HMCC and like not telling our clients what to do all the time, right? As much as like they are hiring us as the people who have the information, it still is the same thing. Just because they're paying you doesn't mean their brains are any different than your boyfriend, right? But gosh, yeah. So it needs to be his decision, right? It needs to be something that he wants to do. He knows that you know nutrition, right? So the real truth is like if he wanted your advice, he would ask for it. The goal would be that this is so fun that we're working on your boyfriend. The goal would be that you're asking him questions and having conversations about things that aren't making it seem like you're prying or that you're trying to like sneak in advice. But instead, like if he is offering up like conversations about stuff or like, oh, I really need to get in like some more protein today, or I need to eat some more protein. I really think I haven't eaten enough today. Or instead of you being like, oh, well, this is like, you could do this, or you could try this, or try having this type of protein thing, or maybe you need to start having a protein shake in the morning before you leave for work or whatever. Just instead say, yeah, like, what do you think you're going to do about that? Or what are some options that you think will help? Sometimes too, especially if he's already in this space, you even saying that, he's gonna not want to hear talk to you about it because he's already there where it's just like, I don't want you to feel like the expert on me. And know that that's where it's probably coming from, Sophie, that it's not that he doesn't trust your advice. He doesn't think you're smart, that you know these things. It's that he feels like it's my girlfriend is trying to think she knows who I am. And I know that seems like, how is that the parallel? But that's just like how we work, that it turns into, you think you know better for me than I know better for myself. It has likely nothing to do with nutrition itself. So keeping that in mind also can maybe just like help you when you're going to respond or say something or whatever. But I don't know, do you have like, does that help? Do you have any more like specific examples that maybe I could help you with too?
God, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think.
What is your goal?
What's my goal for him?
For him. Like,
him.
or in the relationship, or like for not like, do you guys want to get married? But like, but like, what, like, why are you bringing this question to me? Like, what outcomes are you looking for?
Well, I think he's just like, he just doesn't eat very many vegetables. And like whenever I try and like suggest like a whole grain option, like simple things, like he kind of like pushes back, and then he's one of those classic people that waits until he's like starving hungry and then just like has loads of like snack foods. And like he has a pattern, and every time I'm like, see, and like he's kind of just very ingrained, like has very habitual tendencies, I guess.
Does he want to eat healthier? Or is this you just being like, I'm a nutrition professional, like it's so hard for me to keep my mouth shut when you haven't eaten something green in a month?
Maybe a little bit. Like I know he like wants to offset because he boozes quite a lot, and like yeah, I think it's just like offsetting other behaviors, I guess. So
Have like conversations about nutrition and his nutrition, or just like nutrition in general, like you're talking about your clients or yourself. Like obviously you're doing all of those things, you know, like you're probably eating vegetables in front of him, so like he already sees you doing that, I would assume. But yeah, like what are conversations about this like look like for you guys, where then you get into this problem of I'm giving it advice and then he like pushes back?
There isn't really like much conversation about it. I'm just like, I cook things and then he just kind of chooses not to have it and stuff like that. So maybe it's just, yeah, it's just work.
So in that situation, like you're cooking dinner, there's vegetables in it, and you notice he doesn't eat them. Instead of like, you really should eat vegetables, I thought you wanted to like offset the drinking or whatever, which I'm not saying you're saying those words exactly, but instead, oh, did you not like the broccoli? Is there a different vegetable I can make next time? Or could I cook this differently so you would like it? So it's like going back, like, what do you want? Like, how can I do this differently for you versus like, why aren't you eating the vegetables? You know? And just like, I'd be curious what he would say in that situation where you're like, is there a way I could have made this differently that you would have liked it more? Like, I really want to make things that you like. Or if not broccoli, is there something else that you would prefer that I could cook for you? You know, like go that direction. And would he just literally say, I'm not eating vegetables ever?
No, he doesn't say that. They're like, yeah, it was just like an example. I thought maybe it was more to do with his like personality type, but it might not be. It might just be him and like his preferences, basically.
Yeah, it could be. Like, you don't necessarily know, it sounds like. So you can play around with some things. Go with some certain questions and see how he responds and see what comes up. But I would definitely, like, again, he knows that you know stuff about this. So I don't want you to be feeling like he doesn't respect my education or doesn't know that I know these things, that he doesn't know that I can help him. I think he does. It would be crazy if he didn't. So let him come to you, ask some of those other questions that aren't like related to that in that way, and see where that goes is what I would say.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. It's funny too.
next
You
time.
guys will hear these stories all the time. You're going to get all the insights into my life. But the guy that I mentioned that I've been going on dates with, he plays professional tennis and gets like 30,000 steps a day, does not eat enough at all. And is like, I got like probably 100 grams of protein a day. And I was like, and you went to the gym and you're playing tennis and you're running around. And like, yeah, I also have to
Grams
kind
of
of say
protein
like,
now? Sheesh.
and meanwhile, I will say, oh yeah, I think I hit like 150 grams today. And he's just like, oh, so instead of me being like, you need to eat more protein, like that's, I know you think that's good, but it's really, you probably need more. It's like, I'm just saying, yeah, I think I got like this much, you know? So then obviously he compares it to like, I'm me and he's him with his activity level and being a man. So yeah, it's like, I've never really like been with someone before that doesn't know things. Like I've always kind of like dated nutrition and fitness people. And obviously he's in fitness, but like crazy to me that being at that level that we're not getting.
I think I'm at 15 grams today, so I don't want to brag.
You are. Stop bragging.
I had 2 eggs, and that's protein. And that's about all I know. But next time you eat a vegetable, you just need to be like, this is the best Brussels sprout I've ever had in my whole life. Be a real shame if you tried just one bite. Or you could do what my sister does with her 2-year-old and do a no thank you bite. It's like you have to take at least one bite. And if you don't like it, it can be a no thank you bite.
A no thank you bite.
A no thank you bite. Never know. All right, friends, that's it. We are wrapped.
Hope you got a lot out of it. Obviously, if you guys have any questions, feel free, reach out anytime. I appreciate you so much. Obviously, couldn't do anything that I do without you. So thank you.